Good morning, or depending on when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name's Ross, and as always told out of Voice of Radio. So today, we need to take a look at Sandaconda. I love Sandaconda. Sandaconda is one of those Pokemon from Sword and Shield that I absolutely fell in love with. Sandaconda was on my team on my journey through Sword. Sandy Boy with the nickname, if anybody's wondering. And I feel confident it will get a V and a V Max at some point. That hasn't happened yet. But we did get a Sandaconda in Sword and Shield in Japan, and we did get a Sandaconda in the Regirock V deck, so it's time we had a little bit of a gander at a pair of Sandacondas. Now, if we start off with the one from Sword and Shield, we got 140 HP, which is high for a Stage 1 non-GX. 140 HP is very, very high. No, it's not up there with, say, Copperaja, which really is unusually large, but it is larger than average, so that's kind of nice. We've got a retreat cost of 2, which does mean you can get free retreat with Balloon, so that's not too bad. And a weakness to Grass is honestly fine. Grass isn't a big type right now, but if Grass ever becomes a really big type, there's going to be a whole bunch of fire decks that get along playing Welder that are going to be able to keep them in check. So that's a rather nice thing. And we are a fighting type, which means you got Diancie Prism Star to do extra damage, Martial Arts Dojo to do extra damage, Karate Belt to decrease the cost of your attacks, and you're hitting weakness against your lightning Pokemon like Raichu and Alolan Raichu, as well as your colorless Pokemon like Silvally GX, and this all adds up. Well, it's one of the best types in the game right now. It's got one of the best lines of support and best bag of tricks of any typing we've got right now. This is a wonderful thing. But what does it actually do? Well, the first attack here, and I should say all of our translations come from the lovely David Hockman over at limitlesstcg.com/translations. And the first attack here is, let's say, a starting attack. 1 colorless energy, 10 damage. During your next turn, this Pokemon's attacks do 120 more damage to your opponent's active Pokemon. It's fine, but it's not much by itself. The problem is that initially you're using a Stage 1 to do 10 damage. That's a little bit awkward. And of course, that if your opponent makes you switch your active, whether it's something like a Custom Catcher or Volcanion Prism Star, anything that puts you to the bench, and then all of a sudden you lose this. This can get reset fairly easily, because it's then essentially counted as a new Pokemon. If you stay in the active, then yeah, you can do a lot of damage next turn, but in the short term, it's a bit something and nothing, it's a bit awkward. But if you do use it properly, fighting double colorless, 220 damage. Now, straight off the bat, fighting double colorless 100 is not particularly great. It's not really good enough. We can do better. But fighting double colorless 220 is really nice. Of course, you are an evolved Pokemon, so if you, say, use a fighting energy one turn, you can use triple acceleration energy the next turn. Or if you're behind on prizes, you can use Karate Belt and a second energy, and then all of a sudden, you've got this going and you're hitting for 220. So the energy here between Karate Belt, triple acceleration energy, and the fact that you have to have had one energy and attacked with this Pokemon the previous turn, means that if you get an opportunity to use this attack, it will be a very nice attack and you will be doing a whole bunch of damage. Just bear in mind it's not always going to be quite so easy. But if you're hitting 220 damage, we're absolutely loving it. 220 damage is wonderful. 220 damage is enough to KO any Pokemon V other than Zamazenta. Unfortunately, Zamazenta comes in with 230, but then again, we've got a million different ways to add damage here, so even Zamazenta isn't exactly going to give us a particularly tough challenge. It is enough to KO the vast majority of GXs, and really all of the GXs that see a lot of play at the moment. I mean, things like Naganadel coming in with 210 see a fair amount of play, but that will be going down fairly easily. You're a little way away from tag teams and VMAXs. If you're not hitting for weakness, something like Snorlax VMAX even, because you're hitting for weakness, will go down fairly easily here. But let's not forget we've got a lot of ways to increase our damage. So let's say for argument's sake you're using Dynasty Prism Star, well now all of a sudden this is 240. Martial Arts Dojo, if you're behind on prizes, 260. And then we've got Vitality Band. Do please remember it is a tool, so you cannot use Vitality Band and Karate Belt at the same time. That won't work. But with Dynasty Prism Star, Martial Arts Dojo and Vitality Band, you're adding an extra 70 damage. Now you're hitting for 290. And 290 will get the vast majority of tag team GXs. They're the old 300 HP like Magikarp and Wailord that you won't get, but they're not seeing much play, so you shouldn't be too worried. You're almost getting VMAXs here. Unfortunately, the weakest VMAXs, you're looking at, say, Meowth, not a problem, you're hitting for weakness, or Meowth VMAX, I should say. That's kind of nice. But the problem is the other weak VMAXs you're not quite getting. Oh no, wait, you are, because the other weak one is Morpeko VMAX, which is also weak. It just so happens to be that both the 300 HP VMAXs you are hitting for weakness, but you won't get any VMAXs you're not hitting for weakness. Having said that, single prize Pokemon, essentially 290 damage for free energy, I like it, and you've got a nice amount of bulk, but it's another one of those where you really need a 2-turn thing and it's just awkward. Plus, it's not really a one-hit KO because it takes 2 turns to set up. So maybe we can use the other Sandaconda here, the one from the V-Deck. Well, looking at the basics, the only real change here is we've lost 10 HP, which is not ideal, but we do have an ability that says it takes 30 less damage from attacks. It's an ability we've seen many times before. I mean, I showed you Donphan Prime before. It's a Pokemon, well, it is my favourite Pokemon card ever, and that had that ability. It is far from unique. There have been a redonkulous amount of Pokemon with this ability in the past. Although things like Donphan reduce damage by 20, so reducing damage by 30 is quite nice. It's slightly annoying that it's got 10 less HP than the other one, because it kind of makes a bit of a mockery of the ability, because you're reducing damage done by 30, but you've got 10 less HP, so let's say it's mitigated somewhat. But it's still a nice ability to have. But if all you want to do is sit there and tank, we've got better tank Pokemon like the Wishy-Washy from Cosmic Eclipse. So we're going to need some kind of attack, and the good news is we do have some kind of attack. So starting off, we've got 2 fighting energy, 60 damage. It's not good enough. I mean, I showed you Donphan earlier, that did 60 for 1 energy. It's not good enough. Even with all the modifiers putting it up to 130, still not good enough. But if you have 1 more fighting energy on there, you do 70 more damage. So now you're doing 130 damage. Well, this I kind of like. This is an awful lot better. And 130 damage will get the vast majority of non-EXs. I mean, really, when we look at non-EXs, we're usually looking at stuff like Naganadel and below. We're looking at 130 HP or less, so 130 will get them. When we're talking about hitting for weakness, Silvally and Snorlax V and all of those are going down. Even Raichu and Alolan Raichu, the tag team, is going down here. So you're getting pretty much, not everything. Snorlax VMAX is still, unfortunately, out of range, but you're getting the majority of stuff that is weak. So that's kind of nice. And you're basically 2-hit KOing everything else. With the modifiers, that is plus 40 from Martial Arts Dojo, plus 20 from Dancy Prism Star, plus 10 from Vitality Band, we're up to 200 exactly, in fact. 60 and 70 and 70 is exactly 200. But the problem is now we're just 10 damage short of things like Naganadel. And we'll get the weaker Pokemon V like Celebi, but we're not getting stuff like Regirock. We're not even getting Indeedee V, which is 180 because of the minus 30 resistance now, means you're doing essentially 170 and they've got 180. So it's just not as much damage as we want to be doing here. And that's kind of upsetting. And the attack cost, we've got Karate Belt, but even with Karate Belt, it's 2 fighting energy. It's just a little bit expensive. And I know Regirock V might be a 2-prize Pokemon, but you're hitting 190 for free energy, and one of them's colourless. We looked at Hitmonlee earlier, and Hitmonlee does 160 for free energy. Now you need to have Hitmonchan on your bench, alright, but still, it's a basic Pokemon rather than a stage 1. There's a colourless cost in there, and you're hitting 160 rather than 130. And I love Sandaconda, but unless you really want to save the bench space, in which case Hitmonlee can't work, and you really want a single prize Pokemon, in which case Regirock won't work, I think there are other Pokemon in Sword and Shield / the V-Dex which just give us better options. And I prefer Sandaconda as a Pokemon. Actually, I do love Regirock, but certainly Hitmonlee. But I don't know if I can recommend this given the other options. I think both of these Sandacondas are fun and interesting, and certainly in a limited theme deck or pre-release format could be really fun. But I don't think I can recommend them for a proper constructed format. I think I'm going to be forced to give them between 2 and 3 Wassies. We don't give half Wassies. That would be barbaric. Not bad cards in a vacuum, but when compared to the other things we've got of the same type for the same cost, I don't think they particularly hold up, and that makes me a little bit sad. But I'd like to know how you think about this specifically. So let me know in the comment section. Go nuts, be nice. And then make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at The Wassy, and Twitch for some live action at twitch.tv/PTCGRadio. If you want to support the channel, get some bonus podcasts and all that good stuff, head on over to patreon.com/PTCGRadio, where you can do exactly that. And please do make sure you're checking out youtube.com/WassyPlays, where we talk about a bunch of games that don't have Pokemon in, but are awesome. But by far the most important thing as always, look after yourselves till next time, would ya? Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching PTCG Radio.